Arteta's relentless Arsenal ran out victors 3-2 against Ten Hag's Manchester United. What a game it was. Arguably game of the season. But you're here to better understand the tactics. And before we dive in, if you're feeling generous, go ahead and like the video. Help me get it discovered. And if you're new around here, consider subscribing because I'm on my way to 2,500 subscribers and your support would be greatly appreciated. But let's waste no more time at all and jump into analysing some tactics. Arsenal on the left, Manchester United on the right. And on screen, we're looking at the on-paper formations of both teams. Now, starting with Arsenal in possession, we very much saw Nketiah through the middle. We saw Saka on the right, of course. Martinelli on the left, Xhaka operating in the left half space, Odegaard in the right half space, Thomas Partey at the base of the midfield. And this is where we've seen a few changes from the typical Arsenal tactics that Arteta tends to implement. Now, we do know that Zinchenko can offer width from a left-back position and also as an inverted fullback. Now, this is where he operated against Manchester United, and he really did dictate the play for Arsenal. Typically, this would be the job of Thomas Partey, but Zinchenko had a fantastic game. We would also often see White quite wide and high looking for that overlap with Saka, but because of what happened in the first half and that first goal that Rashford managed to get, we did see some tactics change early doors. And what I mean by that is Saliba and Gabriel would often be sat just behind Thomas Partey. Now, Saka was dispossessed around this position with Rashford quite high, and White had already started making that run forward, that overlapping run forward when Saka had lost the ball. It was Eriksen and Shaw who had closed Saka down. They managed to win possession. Rashford gets inside, pings the ball from around about 30 yards. There's really nothing that you can do about it with a moment of quality like that. But where these tactics did differ compared to previous weeks is Manchester United were very successful at hitting Arsenal on the counter-attack in the fixture reversed at Old Trafford earlier this season. And what we saw is Weghorst playing really high, pushing Arsenal back. And we saw Antony and Rashford playing as more of a narrow front three, which was quite a surprise because Arsenal obviously enjoy a lot of their success out wide and high in Martinelli and Saka. And what this meant was that Shaw here and Wan-Bissaka here were left isolated against Martinelli and Shaw. What happened at the other end of the pitch is Gabriel was tasked with looking after Antony. Zinchenko would sometimes come here. But what we did see was Partey and Zinchenko, Xhaka and Odegaard create an overload against McTominay, Eriksen and Fernandes, with Saliba looking after Weghorst and White against Rashford, who came off at half-time. A bit of a mismatch, and that yellow card wasn't something that Arteta wanted to risk. Now, what this meant was because there was always an overload in midfield, Martinez on this left-hand side, every time Odegaard drifted into these spaces, it was either down to Martinez to follow him, meaning that there would be gaps between Martinez and Shaw, and likewise on the other side between Wan-Bissaka and Varane, because Eriksen would be tasked with, for example, closing down Thomas Partey if he was to go towards the ball, Fernandes on Xhaka or Zinchenko, McTominay on Xhaka, which meant one of these centre-backs, depending on which side that they went to, if it was Odegaard working in this half space, it would be Martinez being pulled out of position, and if it was Xhaka on this side, it would be Varane being pulled into all sorts of shapes with McTominay coming over instead. So very difficult for Manchester United to pick this up. And what made it even more difficult for Manchester United was the positions that Zinchenko was picking up. We often saw Martinelli drifting into this left half space with quite literally Xhaka and Zinchenko taking turns at going wide and operating in this left half space, for example. And we've got a fantastic picture here from the goal that Arsenal scored, Nketiah's equaliser. The ball actually comes from left to right into Zinchenko. We can see here they're both operating in this left side. Zinchenko in that left half space, Xhaka on that left wing area. The ball goes into Odegaard. Xhaka makes a run out wide. He gets the ball and he whips the ball in at the back post for Nketiah to head in. Wan-Bissaka is sleeping. And then also what we see here when Trossard came on for a 15-minute cameo as well is we can see here that instead of it being Martinelli operating in that left half space with that yellow circle, it's Trossard. And it's this time Zinchenko making that overlapping run instead of Granit Xhaka. So in this game, a lot of what Arsenal done well did come down that left-hand side. And a lot of what Manchester United's done well came down their left-hand side through Rashford. Now, don't get me wrong, Arsenal were very successful in the early stages of the first half through Saka. And obviously, we got that second goal as well, which was a brilliant move individually by Saka in that second half. And this is highlighted here. We can see in the action areas, that graph in the middle, the deepest orange is in that middle section at the bottom. And likewise for Manchester United at the bottom as well. It was all about the play out wide in this particular game. And if you have a look at Arsenal's average passing shape as well as Manchester United's, both wingers for both sides are the furthest wide and the furthest forward. So a game of wide play for both sides. We can also see here just how deep McTominay was playing. Manchester United often playing with a back three at times when in possession, and Arsenal also playing in that back three. We can see here not only on the tactical board that I just showed you, but also in the graph, just how reserved Ben White is compared to other weeks. He's beyond the halfway line for his average passing shape. And we can see number 35 and 34, Granit Xhaka and Zinchenko, doubling up in that left half space, creating a four, if you will, between those two, Thomas Partey and Odegaard. And Manchester United found it really, really difficult to deal with at times. And as mentioned, when Manchester United had the ball, Arsenal did retreat into their usual 4-4-2 formation with Granit Xhaka and Thomas Partey operating in the middle. We saw Weghorst here. We saw Rashford here. Eriksen we saw in there with McTominay. And what we did see is it would be them taking turns. So, for example, we would see Wan-Bissaka sometimes getting forward, Anthony in that left half space making up a front four or a front five with Fernandes. And other times we saw Wan-Bissaka in this space here and then Martinelli being pushed back. But it did leave Manchester United open to the counter-attack quite often. We see Shaw do the same thing as well. If the ball was going down the right-hand side, we would see a back three like this, with Shaw playing as the left centre-back. And if Shaw got forward, it would be Wan-Bissaka. So that's how Arsenal lined up in possession. That's how Manchester United lined up in possession as well. It was an absolute tactical battle. I think Arsenal, for example, they had a lot of energy, a lot of possession came in that second half. And Arteta did not stop moving throughout the entirety of the game. I do think that bringing Tomiyasu on as well at halftime was a very, very good decision. I think you have to make those ruthless decisions when you want to win these big, big occasions. If we have a look at some of the other goals, for example, Martinez's equaliser, that came from a corner. There's not really too much to analyse there. We've already touched on Rashford's goal as well. An absolute moment of brilliance. Nketiah's goal at the end, we had a look at already as well with this particular shot here. What a time to get to the winner. Absolute scenes at the Emirate Stadium. But that brings us on to the final question of today's video. Who was your Arsenal man of the match? Interestingly, on the Premier League website, it was given to Eddie Nketiah, 2 goals, scoring the winner at the death. And then on the Arsenal website, it was given to Zinchenko. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Other 2 candidates that were up for man of the match on the Arsenal website was Saliba, who had a fantastic game, really in and amongst the defending. And then Bukayo Saka, who scored an absolute top-notch world-class goal. Anything Rashford can do, Saka can do better. I'll leave you make your comments down below. Who was your Arsenal man of the match? So that is going to about wrap things up for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. Arsenal are top of the league, still 5 points clear. Can we win that Premier League title? We'll have to wait and see. But for now, I'm JC, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe and take care.